explained in the previous video, I've been rebuilding the Sopwith PUP again due to a rather nasty incident with a Corsair, of all things, whilst this was sitting on a display desk. So I did completely rebuild it, and then found out that I'd got the top wing completely twisted, and realised, or well, when I say twisted, it was actually nice and straight. It was the lower wing that was actually having a problem. So I used the lighter fluid to completely break down the kit. I'll show you an image of that on the video right now, so you can see. But I used the lighter fluid to sort of break the whole kit apart, basically, and start again. Well, I took it down to the fuselage, and I actually I didn't have to remove the bottom wing. I just softened things up and moved it around. I've still got the damaged wing on here. I didn't have a spare set to hand to repair it, but so we're getting there. So I'm building this in between doing the filming. So hopefully it'll all come together at the end. But let's move on to the COWL where we finished last time. So we've now got to remove some of the plastic from around the vac formed COWL part, and to do that we're going to need a knife, of course, but I also find scissors quite handy too, and there are various elements that we want to remove here. So firstly, we've got this inner part here. Obviously we need the prop shaft to come through there, and we've also got the rotary rotating within, and we of course want to see that, otherwise it's the build's wasted. So we need to remove all of that. Of course we need to remove all of the side stuff all the way around there, but also we've got this little vent here on the PUP. In fact, it also had vents down here too, but we use this space inside for adding the ballast. So rather than putting holes in there too, we're going to leave that as is. If you wanted to, you could actually put some sort of black marks on there to represent those holes if you wanted to go the extra mile on the build. And when we remove this inner part here, we need to try and remove as much of this side wall as well, because that can impact on the front of the rotary motor too. So we just need to. You can keep a sort of a millimetre or so of the stuff there, but it's best to remove as much of that as possible. Once you've removed the inner part here, you can actually attack it from this side as well, especially if you're using a sanding or Dremel tool, that sort of thing, to work away the material. So this little, we've got to remove if we can. You don't, once again, you don't have to. You can just paint it black if you want, to represent the vent on the COWL. But we're going to remove that by, in fact, I'll do this first. I've got a little drill bit here, because it's I think it's a metric. It's about a millimetre, maybe over 1.5 mil. So I'm just going to use that in the corners, or the ends there and there, and then we can use the knife to do the rest. So it's just, you can see I've quite neatly topped it off with one of my old prop adapters, which means it makes it easier to turn. So that's very easy to do. And then just run the knife all the way between the two holes. a little more tidying that can be done on that. That's generally got rid of most of the material in there. Okay. Actually, you hold it up like that, you can see some material there that you can skim away. Right, now let's just remove this inner disc. When drawing your knife around, carefully don't push through too much and start scoring on the inside of the cowl itself. Okay, that bit removed, and then I'm just going to trim that upright part there down. Now this can take a little while because I tend to go at it quite slowly, bit by bit, and just try and keep it as even as possible. I'm also trying to avoid scraping the knife across the front of the cowl there and removing some of the paint that we've already put on. So I'll crack on with taking the material off, and then I'll come back and show you, or in fact I can actually show you one I prepared earlier. Well, this is actually an old one from the first prototype. As you can see, it's got quite a lot of weathering on it, and as you can see there, let's just bring that up. See, I've reduced that wall down to, it's probably about 2 millimeters there. So you can also just give you a quick sneak peek. There's some of the ballast inside the cowl there. So that's one place you can put it. So let me carry on with that. Actually, before I do, let's just take a look at how we use the scissors. So, in fact, before I go at it, removing the base plate, I'm actually going to just go round with a sharper pencil than that, excuse me, just sharpen the tip. And that just enables me to see where I'm going to be cutting. This just needs some careful, precise cutting. What I don't want to do is leave too much of a lip here, because that has to get sanded down. Of course, that's where some of the paint is. So it would mean we'd have to do a bit of touching up. So there we go. And then once we've done that, we can just use a sanding stick to gently on the less aggressive side, can be a little bit flimsy once you've got that base plate off, so just need to carefully go around it. Just smooth up that edge and even it up as well. Right, let me finish this off, and I'll come back to you. We'll start putting the ballast in place. So here we have our freshly cut backformed cowl, and as you can see, I've trimmed down the sidewall on the inside there. We've got our little vent all opened up, and we've got a nice smooth back to the cowl now as well. Now we can test fit this. See, we've got our motor and plywood assembly. We can actually just pop that on. And we can make sure that we have sufficient clearance by rotating. And there doesn't seem to be anything sticking, so that's good. So now comes the task of adding ballast. Now, within the kit, you have a strip of metal, self-adhesive. It's a sort of it's a alloy. It's not lead, but it acts like lead. It actually comes from a strip of material that's used for doing the putting the crisscrosses on windows. We get it from a theatrical company, in fact, theatrical supplies company, weirdly enough, but it works really well for the Microaces kits. So this should be, it's about 3 grams. It should be sufficient for the pup to balance the pup up. So as I showed before, you can actually pop it on the inside there. There's actually one and a bit of strips there. You can't actually get a full 2 strip width on there, but what you can do is that extra material you can actually stick onto. For instance, you can pop it on the part here, or if you're really good at manipulating it, you can actually put it forward and put it around the front edge there, which I'm going to try and do that. I haven't done that before, but that puts the weight really far forward on the aircraft itself. So we'll give that a go. So let's pop these to one side and get going. So the first strip that we're going to put on, let's see how much we used here. Get a good gauge. So I think it looks like it's about half and half. So if we just fold this in the middle, and then cut it in half. Go. And we can put our first piece in. Basically, it goes down the bottom, right up next to the little vent that we've cut out there. So sort of around that position there. Obviously, if we can put it centrally, that all helps. Now it is self-adhesive, as I've said, but we are going to encourage that by putting some glue in there as well. Just add a bit of old foam to foam. No, it's not foam we're sticking, it's just a good contact adhesive. we'll let that dry off. And whilst that's drying, we're going to flatten this as much as possible. We're going to use our ball tool to do that. And by flattening it, we actually get it out of the way of the spinning rotary. You'll notice it's slightly contoured, humped in the middle, so we're trying to knock it down so it's as flat as it can be. Go. And we'll put a little bit of a curve in it, like so. And then we'll just wait for that glue to dry. In fact, I'll put a little more glue on so we can try a second piece. I'm just wondering whether we may be able to get two up on this one. Let's see what we've got. So that comes to a total of 12, so they're 6 mil each. So how much can we get in there? Yeah, no. That's literally probably 9. So we need to split one down the middle. So let's flatten this one out as well. It tends to get wider when you flatten it. See, when we're doing it, notice here I've got a little rim there around about one and a bit mil, and of course that's required because this is going to go over the plywood on the mount itself. So put a little gap there. Just flatten this out. And then either you can slice it with a knife, or I'm actually going to use scissors to go up the middle. Go. So I wonder if this will pliable enough to create a little semicircle. It seems to, as I said, the idea is to get it that's a bit too much there, too much of a bend. There's always a number of different ways of doing this, so pick yours and go for it. So I'm going to stick one of those pieces up there. Sit in that little area just up there. Just manipulating it at the moment, manipulating the shape so it sits quite neatly. Hopefully that won't impact on these little arms that we have going forward. Let's just check. glue up there too, just to make sure that it doesn't come adrift during flight. Be a bit of a disaster. Okay, while that's drying off, let's take the protective strip off this larger one and pop this into place. So let's just get tweezers to help us position correctly. More. That's pretty much there, so I'm pushing it forward as much as possible. Then use the ball tool. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping the bottom of the cowl against the mat and then just pushing down ballast and then rotating around and doing the same again. Just moving backwards slightly. So let's just move that forward and then just carry on, making sure that that is as unobtrusive and secure as possible. So as you can see there, that's all in, sticking up a bit the side there, so we can just pop that down. So you can see the presence of having the metal strip there actually will shape the cowl itself, so you can manipulate the cowl to the correct radius required. There we go. So now let's add a little more glue just behind what we've attached already. Put the second half strip in. And while that is drying off, just pop our other half strip in. Maneuvering it into place. Okay. I'm actually going to use the tweezers because it's probably easier to get into that smaller radius space. Just push the material. No impact on the other side, which is good. So as you can see there, I've actually encouraged that to sit right down into that little space there, where it should have absolutely no impact, certainly on the dummy rotary and also the parts of the plywood motor mount that come forward as well. So there we go. Now we'll pop our last half strip. Seeing as these are the same length, I should be able to judge this by popping one end where the other one is. Then go. So let's encourage that to stick to. So there we now have all of our ballast in place. See there, and actually we don't need to do much touching up on the cowl either, in fact. Hopefully none at all. I'm going to give it a little more sanding around the back edge there, and then we will come to the point where we can attach it. So here we have our finished cowl. We've got our ballast in. I've sanded the back nicely now. I had a little bit of a lip there, so the sanding has removed that, so it's a nice smooth transition from cowl to fuselage. And the next thing obviously we need to do is just test fit it onto our motor mount. So obviously this little vent goes at the bottom of the setup, and you can see that obviously that is the center point of the bottom of the cowl arrangement. So just need to make sure that that sits centrally there, and then you can either fit this so that it's flush with the plywood, or if like me you've got a little bit of plywood on the aircraft that needs covering over as well, then you can always push it on a little bit further so you have a slight overhang, but just make sure that the motor can still turn with that little bit extra on the back. Mine seems to be absolutely fine. So the next step is to actually attach this to the plywood, and we're going to once again use foam to foam, not because these are foam pieces, but because it has that wonderful property of clogging the nozzle. Let's just clear that a little while we're here. Go. So yes, it has that wonderful property of being able to be dissolved by a little bit of lighter fluid. So pop some along those little protruding arms as well, and then all around the edge here. So yes, so if we need to take the cowl off, then using a little bit of lighter fluid, that will pop off nice and easily. So there we go. So we'll just pop this on. Sure that vent is central. And then I'm just going to have that little millimeter overhang back there, still have go. So we can now let that whole cowl dry onto the plywood, and then we can pop the prop on, get it fitted. Obviously, I was saying the reason to take the cowl off is obviously if we need to change the motor for some reason, or you bent the prop shaft and that needs to be replaced, then to actually get the motor out, it's easiest if you take the cowl off, take the dummy motor off, and then get to your business of replacing the parts that you need to. But other than that, that's a nice little arrangement there that gives us our scale look to the extra scale detail to the aircraft. Next part is a rather a puzzle. Now I've got a fresh plastics sheet here, and there is there's one part that well, certainly on this is unnumbered, which is this bit up here. So it's a bit of a mystery part, but I'm going to show you what it's for. If you remove it, let's just go the other side so I can see that. So this actually is a detail part that is used on the underside of the aircraft. It actually sits between the two front legs of the undercarriage. It's my little cushion, little leather cushion. So it actually gets positioned between the two legs with the curved part of it facing backwards. Let's just bring my chair in a bit closer. Now it may require a little bit of trimming, but what we can do before we trim it is we can actually instill a bit of a curve in it just by gently manipulating it like so. There we go. Then we use tweezers and then manage it in place. It's a bit fiddly. See, mine sticks up a lot at the moment, so I'm actually going to trim off 1 millimeter or so on either end, and I'm going to follow the contour that we've got. So when I say contour, it's got this little tag at the top there, you can see. So I'm just going to continue that tag along there and then just trim that off accordingly as well. We'll do the same on the other side. And then refit. Just so like so. Now I think I can probably just take a little more off there, just a very small amount. And this is just part of the detail of the original aircraft. Right, and the best way obviously to pop this in now is just to add a little bit of glue. To each edge. We won't bother gluing it at the front. This should hold it nicely in place. Go. I can probably have a bit of a fiddle around with that and make that fit a lot better. Go. So that's just a little added bit of detail there that makes it a little more realistic. Mysterious part solved. We now have the cowl in place, the glue is set, and we can bring on our aeroplane. I've still got a little bit of work to do. I've still got the rigging to trim there. I've trimmed the bit off the front there, but obviously we now need to fit this to the aircraft. Now, before we do that, it's probably wise we put the prop on. So I've got my prop here that we created earlier with the prop sticker, etc. And the easiest way for me to do this is if I hold on to the gear there and put my prop on, and I can wind and push. And that a little bit further. There we go. So now it's trapped the dummy rotary between the back of the prop adapter itself and the gear wheel there. So it doesn't impact on anything, but it just means that the whole thing spins together. If the motor's left freewheel, sometimes during the acceleration process, when the electric motor is spinning it, it can actually set up a little vibration which robs the power from the setup. The other thing we want to avoid is the prop touching the cowl itself. So that all balances out. We've got our down thrust and our side thrust set up, so that's fine. That's as standard when you pop your motor in and you build the motor mount. So the next step really is, once we're happy with all of that working as planned, I just hear a little bit of a tick where it's touching something. That's fine now. Is to pop this onto the aircraft. Now, before we do, there's a little trick that I've developed, and that's probably, though I don't remember, from a recommendation from a customer. I'd like to show you something here. It's not my birthday, but it is a birthday candle, and I have sharpened one end, so it's a bit like a pencil. And what you can do here is actually just apply where these little lugs go in, these little hooks that we have here and here. We can actually just apply little bit of wax that acts as a bit of a lubricant. We can actually just sort of put it where the two bits of ply come together, so that kind of reduce the friction. And we can do exactly the same on the opposite side here. I may have shown you this earlier in the operation. I can't remember, but yeah, sharpening the wax makes it easier just to get it into those areas where it's going to be most useful, like under the hooks, in and around. So there we go. So now we can do red is right. So the red wire, which is that one on my right now, I can now plug into the port on the receiver, and I can then retrieve my power lead and the receiver itself, and that would then have a battery plug into it. Let's see, I've got nothing here. Let me go and grab a battery. There we go, as if by magic. Now this is a little, I think it's either a 130 or 150. It doesn't actually say, it probably did say it on the back there, but it's well used, but still works. But actually, before I plug this in, before we connect everything up, I'm just going to test fit the arrangement, which I haven't done yet. So let's unplug that too. Let's just stuff all the cables in. Just make sure that this goes onto the fuselage as required. There we go. Yep, I mean that was as easy as it gets. I think that's probably the easiest I've ever had. that was super simple, and the fit seems to be pretty good as well. Hopefully, it's that. It's the old wax that is helping things along there. So that's all good. So let me show you how the battery fits in. So we'll get the motor plugged in, and this is why we have the strain relief on there, because obviously there's quite a weight to this, and so if you do drop it or it does fall out, then you're not going to damage the lead in the motor. So let's go and grab the battery lead. So we can connect the battery up, but I thought I'd just show you that the battery just sits in our little strap arrangement that we've created there. Now you'll notice that you can slide it all the way up to the bulkhead here, but you actually want to leave a little bit of space there, because this actually sits up. I'll show you. Let's see. So there's quite a specific way in which it gets mounted. So let's get the cables out of the way. So I'm going in low to make sure that the battery goes in, and then it should allow me to bring the cowl up and then rotate to lock it in position. So there we now have the battery inside the aircraft in position. You can probably just about see the connector of the battery in the cockpit there, just poking through. So that's how it all fits in. So obviously taking it out, it's a reversal of that process. So you just drop the cowl down in relation to the aircraft itself, and then that all comes out. So doing that with the battery cable connected, it's just a simple process, like so. So that's all connected now. So once again, that should all neatly pop in there, like so. We've got a bit of squealing. Don't know whether that's from a servo or the electronics, but I should go and get my transmitter and get it all hooked up, shouldn't I? Got the transmitter, got the battery. Let's work out how best to put this in. Now I've had a couple of transmitter on. I've had a couple of practice runs, and to be honest, I've actually abandoned the battery strap, and the reason for that was that pretty much every time I put the whole arrangement in, there would be some impact of the wire on the receiver inside, so that it prevented the movement or restricted the movement of the tail feathers. So I've adopted a new technique, which is to actually insert the battery into the fuselage rather than place it on the battery tray there. I'm keeping the battery tray though, because that actually keeps the battery in place in a restricted area here. So I'm actually placing the battery into this cavity just here, so all the way down there. So essentially what we're doing is plugging it in, and then with the connector first, just bring that into that little cavernous area there. So in fact, it's I want it a little bit further forward. There's a little bit of a step at the back of the plywood with some of the 2mm material. So what I'm going to do is just push it a little bit further into the fuselage. Sometimes you can actually just using the thumb in the cockpit, just take it forward like that, so it's in there a little bit further back than sitting on the step there. So, and then I'm going to make sure my cable has got my motor cable has got an extra wrap on the strain relief, so that the cable is actually pointing down or up this situation, because where everything's upside down. And then I'm just going to pop that into the aircraft, and we should then have, fingers crossed, rudder and elevator. So all working in harmony. Plus we've got our wonderful rotary engine zooming away there. So so a little bit of an adjustment to the design, but that should provide us with an easy method to insert the battery, get the COWL on without it impacting on the control surfaces. The other thing, of course, we need to check is the center of gravity. Now, pretty much on all Microaces aircraft, the center of gravity is checked by popping your fingers underneath the wing at the point where the crease is. This is on the top wing, and lift the aircraft up, and then you probably can't see this because it's from the top, but the tail comes up, and that with the battery in, that's sitting quite nicely level. So so that center of gravity for me, from a test point of view, is good. Then what we'll do is obviously examine that again when we come to fly the aircraft, and either add more ballast or trim it. I know with some of these short-nosed aircraft, even on the real ones, they had to trim the either the angle of attack of the rear horizontal stabilizer up, or actually trim the elevator down, so that it brought the tail up and stopped the tail heavy tendencies of the aircraft itself. So interesting. So anyway, we now have, apart from me having to retrim my my rigging, we now have a fully functional, fully built Sopwith PUP from Microaces. So there we go. Well, I hope you enjoyed the build, and I look forward to hearing all about everyone's flying experiences with the PUP. Brilliant. Well, that ends the assembly guide for the Microaces Sopwith PUP. Thank you very much for watching.